Hi, it's Scott here, and thanks once again for tuning in to one of my future of work videos where I try to give you tips and things to think about, mental models and ideas on how to cope with the future of work as it rapidly comes towards us. If you enjoy this channel, please hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell and you'll be notified of any future videos that I do. Let's get into the next one. Now, one of my favourite quotes is from Isaac Newton. Famous for his work as a physicist, but he also was a man who thought a lot about wisdom and what it meant. And in one of his most famous quotes, he brings this image to your head of a little boy standing on a beach, throwing pebbles into the sea. And basically what the quote says, and I'll put the exact quote here so you can have a look at it, but basically what he says is, the more experienced you get, the more you understand that you don't really know much about anything. And it's one of the reasons why I have a problem with a particular attitude that some people have. And that attitude is certainty. Someone who says that they understand it, they know how it works, they know everything about a subject, they are an expert. I think a little alarm bell should go off in your head whenever you hear that. They may well know a lot about a particular subject. They may well know more than I know. But the people that I'm drawn towards are the people who say, do you know what? I've been working in this field for many years and I've got some ideas and I think I know a little bit about it, but I've still got a lot to learn. I think that's not only attractive, but it's also a much more realistic perspective on the complex things that are human beings. I heard a quote from, an African quote from Senegal actually, which said this: when an elder dies, a library burns down. When an elder dies, a library burns down. Now that sends my brain off in all sorts of directions. You know, what does it mean? Well, it means that you've got to learn from them, you've got to understand their story, where they came from, understand, you know, how they got to the positions they got to. So I think that's quite powerful just on its own. But then it's also generative, because I also think that for organisations, what they should be doing is thinking about the people who have been in the company for many years. Now often, and I've done this myself, so I'm by no means innocent in this respect, companies focus much more on their new starts. They focus on their new seed corn, or whatever it is they call them in HR language, whatever it is the language these people use these days. But actually sometimes it's the people who've been there a long time, or who have even left the organisation, that know more about the problem that you're currently facing than the people you've currently got. And honestly, this happened to me twice in my career, where I was working on implementing some future stuff into organisations, future organisational designs or operating models, whatever it was, and someone would come up to you and say to me, we've done this before, you know, and it didn't work. And it's like, oh, these programs can be millions of pounds, but they've tried it before and failed. But because they have no organisational memory, they make these simple mistakes. So I think it's really important that companies think about how they capture the memory of their former employees, or their current employees. You know, what have we learnt? People do things called after action reviews, where they maybe do a project and they sit down and they work through what worked, what didn't work, what would we do better, etc. But you know what happens to most of those after action reviews, don't you? They end up in the bin. So these things should be out of the bin in the organisation as we move forward. These are important parts of your organisational DNA. And finally, the other thing that generates this quote about how the death of an elder represents the burning of a library, there's a personal part to this where I do believe that if you live a life, it's worth recording. And I think that you can learn a lot about yourself by journaling, by diarying, by doing an audio diary, a vlog diary, whatever it is you do, whatever it is you choose to do. That is a really powerful technique that can really help you not only remember things, but actually pass them on to the next generation so they don't forget where they came from. In my most recent TEDx talk, I started it by saying I'm going to talk about my grandfather's foot. And that foot was actually in this box, which I'll show you now before I finish. Now here's my It's an old printer's box that I bought in a thrift shop in Edinburgh about 30 years ago. And in here I've got my grandfather's foot. Now don't worry if you're squeamish, it's not what you think, despite my skulls and my brains behind me. It's actually my grandfather's letters that he wrote to me over a period of 30 years. And it's a foot deep. This is my grandfather's foot. And in this box are some of his memories. In his box is his library. We've not let it burn.